So let's take a moment and review scientific notation then. Scientific notation abbreviates large or small numbers by writing them as multiplied by a factor of 10. And in science, especially in chemistry, we use scientific notation all the time. The reason is because we're always talking about very, very small things, atoms or protons, neutrons, electrons, and so their sizes are always in scientific notation. Or we're talking about large numbers of atoms and molecules, and such large numbers have to be written in scientific notation also. So you want to be really good about putting numbers into and out of scientific notation. Usually we'll be putting them into scientific notation. So let's review. Number one, when you're going from scientific notation to a whole number, if the exponent is a positive exponent, you want to move the decimal to the right that many places. While if the exponent is a negative exponent, you want to move the decimal to the left that many places. Then on number two, this is what students tend to struggle with more, is going from a whole number to scientific notation. They forget whether to make the exponent positive or negative. And so here's how I like to have students remember it. If you are starting with a large number, something like the number 34,000 would be a large number. It should have a positive exponent. So you can see the correlation there. Large numbers, positive exponents. However, if you're starting with a small number, we're talking a decimal number like 0.3, or any decimal number would be a small number. You want to make the exponent a negative exponent. So you can see the correlation there also. Small numbers, negative exponents. So let's take a look at these examples down at the bottom of the page. If you're going from scientific notation out, and you see that there's a negative exponent, you would move the decimal to the left that many places, and so your number would become, here's my decimal, fill in that gap with a 0, and then 32. So my number would be 0.032. Let's go down below that where this time the exponent is positive. So now we're moving the decimal from where it exists 6 places to the right. So you would have the number 3,670,000, and that would be 3,670,000. Now, like I mentioned, we're usually going to put numbers into scientific notation and leave them there. We like it. It is called scientific notation after all. So let's take a look at the next example. We got 356.0. We want to put that in scientific notation. Please always make sure you move that decimal point to make a number between 1 and 10. So right now it's between the 6 and the 0. I'm going to move that decimal so that it's right there between the 3 and the 5. So that when I write my number, I now have a number between 1 and 10. Some students try to, just put that decimal wherever they please, and they'll put something like this. And this is incorrect because this is not a number between 1 and 10. So always make that number a number between 1 and 10. Then to finish the scientific notation part, you want to look at how many places you move that decimal. We moved it 2 places. And then since it was a large number to start out with, that exponent would be a positive number. So it'd be 3.560 times 10 to the second. I'm going to go ahead and keep that 0 on the end. Since it was significant in the number originally, I want to keep it as significant afterwards. In the example down below, let's look at the 0.021580. This time, I need to move my decimal to right here to make a number between 1 and 10, so 2.1580. Going to keep that 0 again since it was significant before. I want to keep it significant after. And I move that decimal 2 places. And since my original number was a decimal number or a small number, my exponent should be positive on that one. Okay, the last thing we're going to do is take a look at how we enter our scientific notation into the calculator. Because like I said, we don't like to take our numbers out of scientific notation. We'll leave that for your math teachers to work with you on. We like to just leave it in scientific notation, so we want to do it correctly in the calculator. So on your calculator, you want to find this EE button. Now on Texas Instrument calculators, you will find it above the 7. If you look at the button above the 7, you'll see it'll be 2 capital E's. And you usually have to hit the second and then that button to get an E to come up on the screen. And you'll notice that even though it's an EE button, only one E pops up on the screen. And that is perfect. That's just the way you want it to be. What that EE button does is it stands for times 10 to the. So you do not ever have to hit times or 10 or that little caret button to get an exponent in there. And students will find it so much easier using this EE button. It goes faster as well as helping you to make less mistakes in your calculator. So let me show you how you would enter letter A into your calculator. You would actually type in 3.1. You do not hit the times key. You would hit the second and then that EE button so that one E comes on the screen. And then all you have to do is hit the 6. You're not going to punch in a 10 or the caret button. Just 3.1 E6 plus 7.053 E2. So go ahead and try that, and let's make sure you get the correct answer. Now, I'm going to go ahead and write down my calculator answer, and then we'll work on the significant figures and the scientific notation. So this is my answer in the calculator. But we always, anytime you have a number like kind of above 1,000 or below 1,000th, you always want to put that in scientific notation. And then we also want to round it correctly. So let's take a look at scientific notation first. My decimal is currently there. I need to make it a number between 1 and 10. So I'm going to move it all the way to there. And then I'm going to have, 3.1 something times 10 to the whatever. Then let's also look at this significant figures. So since we're adding, we're going to look at fewest to the right of the decimal. So there's 1 to the right of the decimal, and there's 3 to the right of the decimal. So I just want to keep all to the left, keep the decimal, and just 1 to the right. So I would correctly write this answer as 3.1 times 10. And let's see, I moved that decimal 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 places. And since it was a large number to start out with, that exponent should be positive. So that's how we would write the correct answer there. So why don't you take a couple moments and try letters B and C, and then we'll check those. As you are checking these, make sure that you realize that you don't need to use parentheses around your numbers. That's one of the beauties of using the EE button. It kind of eliminates a lot of buttons to press there. So in the calculator, I get 0.002594 and so on. And then I need to look at scientific notation first. So I'm going to move the decimal to between the 2 and the 5 to get a number between 1 and 10. Now I need to look at significant figures. Since I was dividing, I'm going to do fewest total. I've got 1, 2, 3, 4 total there, and 3 total there, so I'm going to keep 3 total. Now these zeros I'm not keeping at all. Keeping 1, 2, 3, and I'm going to write this as 2.5. Now, this is a good place to talk about the fact that this next number is an 8. And I get some kids who see that as an 8, which want to round that to a 5 and round that up and so on. But I like to call that domino rounding, which we do not do. We actually only look to just the immediate next number, and since it's currently a 4, that means that we would not round this up, and we would leave it as 2.59. So don't do domino rounding. Just always look to the immediate next number. If it's 5 or greater, that's when you round it up. So I'm just going to keep 2.59 and look at how many places I moved that decimal, which would be 3. I had a small number to begin with, so that means that my exponent should be negative. So it should be 2.59 times 10 to the negative third. Okay, for my answer in the last one, I get 9, 8, 4, 4, 2, 9, 2, 0, and so on. So I want to look at scientific notation first of all. I'm going to put my decimal way over here between the 9 and the 8. Look at significant figures. I'm going to keep, let's see, I've got 2 total here, 4 total there, and 3 total there. So the fewest between 2, 4, and 3 would be 2 total. I'm going to keep the 9 and the 8 then. I'm going to make my answer 9.8 times 10. And let's see how many places I moved that. That would be moving it 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7 places. My number was originally huge, so that would still be a positive exponent there. Okay, and now you've got all the tools you need to be able to calculate, round your answers correctly, and write them in scientific notation correctly. Good luck as you try it on your own.